It is 6:06. So I am going to call us to order. And let me just go back over here. And Liz is going to be our minute taker. Thank you. And so I'll just start with any public comment. Okay. Oh, go ahead, Marguerite.
I'm just going to let my dog out. I'm sorry.
Okay. So, Elisa, you haven't joined us before, but we're a pretty informal group because we're really small. And so we do have a set time for public comment, but as we go through, I'll offer other opportunities for folks to contribute. So,
Sure.
Okay, so we haven't met since August. And so we need to approve those minutes. So board member, if Aaron or Liz could make a motion to approve the minutes from August 2nd, 2022.
I'll move.
Thank you, Aaron. And all those in favor of approving the minutes from August, please say aye. Great.
Aye.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so sorry, I keep going back and forth because my agenda is on my screen. So that's why all the clicking, but I wanted to just first sort of do a check-in. So we haven't been together in a while, and Marguerite, I don't know if you've ever sat in with this group before, but maybe we could just take a minute to go around and introduce ourselves and what our role is, or if we're not on the board, or in addition to that, which town you live in. So Liz, can you start, please?
I'm Sarah, and I'm in Bristol, and yep, board member. Thanks.
Great. And Nancy?
I'm Nancy Cornell, and I live in Starksboro.
Okay, thank you. And Marguerite?
I'm Marguerite, or Margie, and I live in Starksboro also.
Great. And Elisa?
Hi, I'm Elisa, and I live in Bristol.
Thank you. And Aaron?
I'm Erin. I'll be on video next time, but I'm a little rough right now because I've been painting all day and I look a little awful. And I'm a board rep from Bristol.
Great. Sean, I don't know if you're there or walked away, but Sean Kimball is recording this for us from NEAT, or for us for NEAT TV, which is great. And I should have introduced myself right off the bat. I'm Krista Seringo, and I'm in Bristol, and I chair this committee for the school board. So updates since we've last met. Well, I don't know if everybody knows by now that we do have the results of the merger vote. And so in both districts, the vote did not pass. And we're not really sure what the next steps will be. That committee is now no longer in existence. Their work is done. Next Wednesday or Thursday, whichever day the 16th is, the State Board of Education will be meeting. And so there have been a couple things that have been brewing as far as where the district is headed. The merger is one, and then the State Board of Education is the other. And at that meeting, they will be, I believe, making a determination on how to ensure that the Lincoln School District has the services they need to, the centralized services that they need, that they are not able to provide as a standalone district. So that will be happening. And in the meantime, we're trying to continue to focus on making sure kids are getting what they need every day at our schools. So does anyone have any thoughts, questions, comments, just kind of where we're at?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Just because I'm new, this is my first time, so I feel like I need a little education. Thank you for allowing me to come and join you tonight. My question is, what is the intention of this committee?
That's a great question. Thanks. And I probably should have led with that. So our committee is focused on making sure that we are connecting regularly with our community and aligning the work of the school board with community values and priorities. And we were formed right after, I believe, or soon after we unified through Act 46 into MAUSD, became one school board, as a way to ensure that even though we no longer had individual school boards in each of our towns, that community members still felt connected with the larger MAUSD board. And we did a lot of work a couple of years ago as the conversation began around declining student enrollment. And we worked with Sue McCormick, who is an equity and inclusion consultant and who does a lot around meaningful dialogue and discourse in communities so that people have a voice in the decisions that are being made that impact them. And so this committee's function is to really be a bridge between the board and the community. And the community is really our owners in policy governance language, although I don't love that term because I think it can have some sort of negative connotations for some people and cultures. But just really ensuring that we're finding ways both to inform our community about what's happening, but also to get input as things are happening in the district.
Can I ask a follow-up briefly?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
For those of you that are here tonight, how do you think it's working? Do you feel successful as a committee? Do you feel that you're making your intention well known and you're getting good feedback? I just don't know. I'd love to hear.
That's a great question. I don't know if Liz or Aaron want to chime in, and then Nancy's been involved in the committee for a long time as a community member, so feel free to share your thoughts as well.
I think this is my first time as a board member in this group, but having helped Krista do a lot of data analysis for stuff that's come out of this committee, I think that the attention is getting larger on this committee because people are hungry for that connection with the board. And a lot of good information has come out of it. We've actually expanded to include teachers into this group and the board as a larger group. So I think that the intention and the goal of this group might not be as well known as we like, but it certainly is growing. And that's just from my perspective, being a general board member and joining this group recently.
Anyone else want to chime in? Go ahead, Nancy.
I think I've been on, one of the things that I think is great about this committee is it's a committee of the board that from the very beginning invited community members to join it. And I just, I've always felt very welcomed and by the group. And I think we've in the past done some really amazing work. And I happen to be cleaning my office, which I only do once in a while, and it shows. And I came across some work that we had done as a committee back in 2019. I think it must have been when we were working with Sue McCormick. And I mean, one of the things that we did was that we learned a ton about facilitating and about ways to engage the community. And one of the things I came across was a set of interviews that we conducted with community members where we had a common set of questions and we recorded people's answers and we were connecting what we were learning from people with some work we had done in larger group meetings as a committee. I mean, where we invited the community to forums. And anyway, I've been very excited by everything I was learning about ways to engage the community in a meaningful way. And I'm sure I have more to learn about that. But I think that I think that's really important work, and it's probably key to making sure that our community is well connected to our schools and to the board.
Yeah, and I would just add to that I think we had some really good momentum and really learned some great best practices of how to do this work. And I think we all realized it takes a lot of time and a commitment by lots of folks. So having community members on this committee is really key, because it's a big lift to be sure that you're being really inclusive in your engagement with your community. And it's way beyond the ability of just a few people on a board. And we had this great momentum, and then COVID hit, and then some hard decisions were brought to the forefront. And it was just this sort of, and we've been, I think, stuck in that place now where it feels like that good work kind of got derailed for lots of reasons. I would say most of them unintentional. And I hope we can get our way back to that, because I think it really is important work. And I don't know, what our configuration is going to look like moving forward and how that will change what we do. But for me personally, I sort of decided I think we need to kind of keep going, because it's so important no matter what the governance structure looks like. And it is a constantly evolving effort. So, people are meeting in person again, and that's really great. Just connecting with people similar or different from you in person is pretty huge. So I'm excited to see where we go with connecting with our community around what's important. The board's focus really is meant to be future oriented, and sort of where do we want to go 5, 10, 15 years from now. And that lens is kind of what shapes the policy we set out for our goals for achieving that work. And I think it's this committee's job is to try to find ways to make sure that vision is we're regularly checking in with the community to make sure it aligns with what they believe is important and how they would prioritize that. So from the work that we did with Sue McCormick a few years ago, we developed a set of education values, and that was a really great, inclusive, robust process to develop that. But they haven't been revisited since then. So anyway, great question, Elisa. A lot more to talk about there, but it's a great context building.
Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate it.
Marguerite, did you want to say something?
Yes, I am here really to listen and see what you're doing and how you're trying to bring to to achieve the things that you want to do. But as a community member, I'm concerned that there seems to have been, if the ownership is the community, it seems like lately that hasn't been the case, that there's been a top-down way of conducting things in the district, where the superintendent has had certain ideas that are contrary to what the community has wanted. So that's kind of, to me, it seems like an upside down application of the process. I was really heartened by the Nate Levinson report and by hearing what you said about bringing in principals and teachers, because they're an important part of the community. And if we're going to be focusing on equity, I can't see a way of doing it without involving the teachers who care very much about that the children that they teach actually learn well. So I don't know how because I'm not a board member, how this will play out in the board, but I do hope your goals of having the community be listened to and so some of the action or the goes from the community to the board, and then the board makes policies, rather than just a top-down approach would be, I think, very helpful. And I think it's what is spelled out or what is meant by the policy governance, but it's just not the way it's been happening. I guess that's the main thing that I wanted to say. So I hope that will happen.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Liz.
So since the Nate Levinson report came out, starting this spring, the district has been working with him and the building principals from across all of the schools to implement something called bounded autonomy. So this is in the works, right? And it's not affected by the merger vote at all. Probably the extreme to which they have to do it is going to be affected. And that's a way in which they there are obviously some things that have to be district-wide equalities, right? Like, say, the number of students that are in a school that are on it. This is an example, right? So according to his report, and he also did a really long report for the state, for the DMG. And in this report, he explained how, say you have a certain number of students that are on an IEP, for instance, and in the district, right, you have a certain ratio to special educators per student, right, per students that are on it. And so there's this equalizing factor where you make sure that students across different schools have equal access to services. And then there's some flexibility beyond those things for the principals to have some more autonomy over their budget. So it's a bounded autonomy system. So this is something that's been worked on. We don't have a lot of details because all that we really were updated on so far is that it's being worked on and it's being discussed, and they're working through that to kind of mutually agree on what the bounds are. So that's exciting, and it will continue to happen, and we'll learn more about it in the future.
Thanks, Liz. So what Liz, I think, is talking about is that's a place where the principals are taking an active role in creating new ways of staffing in our schools where they didn't have that input in place before. And so that, I think, is going to really, it's a great example of their voice and leadership being taken into consideration in all of our schools. So that's actually one of the great things that came out of the Levinson report. And just also a great example to me of how that report in and of itself probably wouldn't have even happened had we not had strong community input around our superintendent's proposal and a desire for then communities to be able to put forth proposals, and then this desire to then look at those proposals from an outside perspective. And so I actually think that we've been pretty responsive and flexible in terms of trying to adapt the way we're making decisions as things have gone along to incorporate more community input. But it is a constant effort for sure, and one that takes a lot of work from a lot of folks. So I'm glad you're here, and I hope you'll stay committed because to really do that work well, beyond just sharing information, to really be empowering people to be involved in what's happening, it does take time and effort. So one of the things that so Erin mentioned that she did help a little bit with some of the things we had done in the past, and one of them was helping us to create some language around the policy that directs the work of this committee. And that policy includes I don't want to say requirement because it sounds punitive, but our goal should be to develop a really deliberate plan for how we regularly are connecting with the people in our community so that it's not reactive, so that we set out a 3 to 5 year plan for what we're going to do to connect with people. And I think I mentioned earlier that, according to policy governance language, that they've always referred to that work as ownership linkage. I think there's some new thinking about that language of ownership as being maybe not the best words to use, thinking about the history in this country, and that's sort of a fraught term for lots of people. So if we think just about community linkage, I like to use that word instead. But either way, finding a way to develop a plan where we're regularly connecting with our community. And so the board's work it's more like, 15,000 feet. It's not the day-to-day operations of the schools and the district. We have policies to monitor how well those operations are happening, but our work is really on that kind of aspirational goal. And it's articulated in our ends policy. And I'm going to just put that up for a minute so people can just see what that looks like again. It's something that I always have to look back at myself because I have to be reminded. It's long, but it has let me see if I can share a screen. It has sort of a preamble that I think is really helpful to see. Okay, Liz, can you see that?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I can see that you're starting to share.
Okay.
Yes. Yep.
Okay, great. All right, so this is our ends policy, which was developed a while ago. I don't know exactly when, but it gets revisited and looked at. And so that first component of it is kind of the overarching goal of our school district. The only change that was made recently is based on policy put forth by the School Board Association around adding equity into your district ends. And so there's a sample policy from the VSBA that's exactly just related to equity, but in our district, we put equity right in here, committed to equity and outcomes. But that's the only change that's really happened to our ends in quite some time. So 1.0 is kind of the overarching focus. And then 1.1, 1.2, and 1.3 breaks that down into 3 areas. And so once a year, in fact, this just happened in October, we received a report from our administrators looking back on the previous year and how we are doing toward meeting these goals. And like most aspirational missions, it's ongoing work. It's not usually ever done, but we're interested in a board as knowing, like, are we making progress toward this? Is it reasonable progress? What does that look like? What's the evidence we have to see that? And that's our work. But I think another part of our work is to know, does this policy and these sub goals match what our community thinks is important for our school district to achieve? So that community linkage plan that I mentioned earlier, this committee's work needs to be around making sure and having a plan for how we connect with our community to see if this overarching mission matches what they think they want at a cost they can accept, because that's important as well. Is this what they want out of our school district? And so we've been trying to jumpstart this process of creating a plan in conversations with the board. And then we put together a thought exchange, which is a quick and easy online platform that allows you to pose a question and generate responses to that question. And then you can also go in and rate other people's responses to that question. Mm-hmm. But we were trying to get at, both from board members, and then I invited members of this committee to share what they think if we know this is our policy, what should we ask our community about that, to know if how we're in the direction we're headed is the one that resonates with people. And do we want to ask about specific parts of the policy? Do we want to be more broad? Do we want to ask people to prioritize how they would rate these different things? Those are all questions that I think we need to contemplate in this group and at the board level to figure out when we go out to our community, what is the information we want to know from them? So I wanted to show, so I'm just going to pause for a second and see if anybody has any questions about this ends policy or about what it is we're trying to do. Okay, I'm going to.
I guess I do have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
And maybe it's part of the question of the work you're describing, Krista, but I wonder if we have any reason to doubt whether our communities think this is the right stuff for our ends policy. I mean,
can you tell me more about what it is you're trying to get at?
well,
Sorry, you go ahead.
I guess what I'm thinking is I'm not sure we really do have any reason to doubt it, but we'd only know whether our community supports this if we put it in front of people again.
Mhm.
Because probably most people aren't very aware of it at all.
Mhm.
And yet as I read it again, and I was there when I was part of the school district when we wrote it, so it's pretty familiar to me.
So how long ago was it, Nancy? Because I never remember.
Oh gosh, it was certainly when Evelyn was the superintendent is when we wrote it.
Okay.
And I don't know when that was, Krista. Hi, Patrick.
Did you see my note that I'm in your office? Okay. I'm going to just stay put if you're okay with that.
That works for me.
Okay. Do you need me to shut your door when I leave? Okay.
There's a little bit of work to do still.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Sorry.
All set up and ready to go.
All right. Okay. So it was a while ago when Evelyn was 15 years more.
Oh gosh, it was. I would have to really dig to find out when.
That's okay. All right, but in
When
any
we
case,
started,
go ahead.
it was when the board started the work around policy governance.
Okay. Yep. So anyway, go ahead. But you were saying you don't.
No, I mean, I love this. I love what it says, but I helped write it. So, and I don't think people are very aware of it. And yet it also is pretty general. And in a way, the devil's in the details, I suppose. What do we mean by equity? What do we mean by any of this language? What do we mean by students pursuing their own interests? Those sorts of things. I mean, you really have to put meat on the bones to know what these things really mean.
Bingo. Yeah, that I think is what our work is actually, because I think, well, this is my opinion, so others might disagree, but I think what happens is it is very broad, and that policy governance done well is it starts broad and it's like nesting bowls. And so when we get these reports from our superintendent, which is how we know if our leaders are moving the ends forward in a way that's acceptable, that if we don't add any meat to that based on what our community values, the interpretation is for our administrator to determine. And all of our policies were written with sort of a template policy, but as we've gone along and gotten more comfortable with monitoring those, I think we're getting more familiar as a board and comfortable with maybe tweaking some of them to be more reflective of what we think is what the intention is or should be. But really, we need to be going to our owners or our community to check that. We need to kind of put that meat on the bones in a couple different ways. And I think one of those is getting community input. One of those is knowing, what education experts say. One of those is kind of anticipating future trends, but also really knowing what does the community mean, for example, when it says we're committed to equity. What does that look like? So to be able to come back to the board to say, we asked our community about some components of the ends, and this was what they said. And we as a board think it's important for that to be reflected in the work happening in our schools, in the narrowing of the funnel of what's actually happening on a day-to-day basis. And how can you show us evidence of that? I think that's the work. And that's what I think I see this committee as having the opportunity to try to do, is try to identify, there's a lot here that we could ask people about. So I think my hope is that we can try to prioritize what we think we might want to ask people about. And maybe we ask questions about one thing now, and next year it's something else, and the year after it's something else. And that process, I think, is going to just really help us make sure that we're aligning this very overarching ends policy with what matters to people in our community. I don't know, what other, do you want me to keep sharing this, or should I put this down now? Or do you want me to put it in the chat? I'm aware that we're now limited in how much we can see each other when I'm sharing.
I feel like it would be good to put it down now.
Okay, I'm going to drop it into I'm just going to stop sharing right now. You get the general idea, but I will put it in the chat if you want to be able to refer to it.
So first of all, Nancy, I 100% agree with what you were saying. I think you're absolutely right about the meat on the bones. I'm trying to find the right words to articulate what I'm sensing. I'm very new to this process. I'm sure it's a very good process. It's also a very white process. It was composed by us white folk. And so it looks like the T's are dotted, or the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted, and it's right in line with the DEI and all that. And it's a very lovely document, and I appreciate all the work that went into it, but it's very white. I'm pretty sure that if our students of color at Mount Abe read that, they would probably rip it up and burn it in the fireplace. Because it says all the right things, but that's not translating into the culture of the school. And so I just had to say that, because otherwise we just keep patting ourselves on the back as good white people following all the new DEI rules and regulations. And to me, there's got to be a little bit more to it than that. We live in a community of white people. So when we take it out to the community of white people, our Black community members aren't going to show up. Our people of other cultures aren't going to show up to the meetings because they know that their input isn't going to be well responded to. So to me, when we say put it out to the community, we have to figure out how to admit our whiteness and own it and keep checking in on it with ourselves to see if we can start to learn how to create a better culture at our school. So while these questions and the ends and all that is all well and good, it feels a little inadequate to me somehow. And I don't have all the answers. I just wanted to point that out because I feel like that's why I'm coming here to these meetings, is to keep catching us up on our own whiteness in this process and how it gets in the way of actually trickling into the school in such a way that our students of color and culture aren't afraid to go to school in the morning. And that's really important to me. So thank you for listening for that.
Alyssa, do you mean that that if we're talking about these ends, and I think of them as learning goals for kids, that is what outcomes we want for students, are you saying that you think that there are pieces missing in this list of outcomes that would make students of color would recognize more readily than they might recognize some of these things? Or are you saying that the system of having these goals and writing them out is inadequate to a multicultural community?
I think I'm saying a little bit of both. Clearly, what's happening now isn't working. And there's nothing in this plan that addresses that it's not working or takes it to the level of being a little bit uncomfortable. Pardon me, it's just difficult to articulate.
So are you saying that, I mean, in the second part of that preamble, race is addressed as an equity issue.
Mm-hmm.
And what that part of the preamble says is that race should not be a predeterminer of the degree to which kids meet those the rest of those learning goals.
Yes.
And are you saying that you understand that that's not the case right now?
Yes. It's very far from the case right now. And
I did not know that.
yes, it's very far from the case that, right. It's very, very far. And to say it on paper is one thing. But and to then ask a white community is going to look at that and say, oh, that's great. That's exactly what we want. But it doesn't actually make any difference in the school environment. There are parts I think that need to be fleshed out is curriculum content, safe spaces, hiring people of color at all areas. That there's tons and tons and tons of layers in there that are apt, in my experience, apt to get skipped over because us white folk love the language of, race should not be blah, blah, blah. It's kind of like why we're just changing to actually remove that it's okay to have slaves in our Constitution. One ought not to have slaves. This is a little bit like that in a certain way, in that we're saying, yeah, we ought not let race be a factor, but it is a factor. So until we really acknowledge that and have an honest conversation with our white community about that, I don't think it's going to make any difference what we say or write on paper. It has to translate into direct action, and not 10 years from now, but tomorrow or as soon as possible. So anyway, it's hard for me to articulate. Thank you for bearing with me. I just think it's really, really important that we take it into consideration as we go forward. I thank you.
I think you're articulating well. I saw Liz's hand up and then Marguerite.
I think one thing, Alyssa, that might be exciting to share right now is, and I'm taking, is our community familiar with the ENDS policies? How can we put this out to all the diverse aspects within our community? How do we reach everyone for feedback? Are there goals missing? I've got some notes here on that. And I just want to encourage it can be difficult for anyone to stay continually involved with it, but there's a community council at Mount Abe that meets once a week at 2:15 to 2:45 at Mount Abe, and I think you would have really enjoyed some really difficult conversations that have happened there. Like maybe a year ago or two, they had a conversation about a proposal that was brought to them about the Pledge of Allegiance being played during the school day, right? So that had amazing conversations from our students. Our principal, the Black Lives Matter flag being flown, that didn't just happen. It was a fully engaged school. And so I feel that there is recognition of the challenges that, we're a small community and we're aware, right, of attitudes. And part of me just hopes that now that we're coming out of COVID a little bit, I think some things were exaggerated and inflamed there for a few years. And I've heard much more positive feedback this year. And I think that our high school in particular, and I know that we're talking district-wide with the ENDS policy, has taken, there's a really, they're addressing it, right? Like it's heard of in the classrooms, it's talked about in advisory, it's on the table. And I would say the direct connection that I see to that is when a few years ago we did do those community events and say what's important to everybody. And then we came back and compiled them with Susan McCormick. They matched up really well to our strategic plan. And part of that aligns with a social emotional coordinator, right? And so that person kind of intentionally designed conversations, for instance, around the Pledge of Allegiance to go out and to say, okay, let's talk about this, and this is how we're going to present it. And then we're going to get feedback. We're going to compile that feedback. So there are some really still being developed avenues, and there's always going to be a lot of work to go. But I just wanted you to know about that.
Just want to say thank you. Yeah, I'm very well familiar with Ray Donovan's work and attended all of the workshops, and that is why I'm here.
Marguerite, did you want to say anything?
So, so reading the goals that are very well articulated, I just think that to get community feedback, most of the community's eyes would probably glaze over a bit because they're very general, as has been said. And what really matters is the strategies that are used to accomplish the goals. And I'm wondering I think that is the area where, as well as having the goals, but also having strategies to meet the goals, or asking the community for strategies in the community, including what Liz was talking about, like was happening at the high school with the students there, and the schools also, I think is important. Not just focusing on, I can't imagine anybody disagreeing with those goals, but I'm sure there are very many differences of opinion that we would be missing if we just focused on the goal, on these ends that we've looked at now.
That's a really
sorry. I just wanted to say
idea.
my camera died again. Sorry,
Okay.
but I'm here still, so I'm sorry. Go ahead, Nancy.
Well, I just think that's a really interesting idea. What it leads me to believe, to think about, Margie, is what if what we were designing was a conversation about equity strategies?
Mhm.
about what strategies would enable us to ensure that outcomes were not predetermined by the characteristics in that list in the second paragraph there of the preamble. And I mean, because that would help people, I think, not glaze over. And it not only what strategies are in place, but what are the possibilities about strategies, because that would be a very interesting conversation for our community, I think. And I also think it would get more quickly at what Alyssa is talking about, is what are we doing and what are we going to do now, rather than sort of stay in the area of the language of the ends of the goals themselves. I mean, one of the challenges when we're in a situation where we're a mostly white community, but not everyone is white, is, I mean, I can argue about, we should be analyzing all of the data that we collect for our ends reports. We should be analyzing it against those different characteristics of gender, sexual orientation, disability, class, and race. And there's work we could do fairly easily around that isn't being done. But when people of color in our district in our communities, it's such a small number, you can't use data to answer the question, are we meeting these outcomes are these outcomes predetermined by these characteristics or not? You can only get at that by having conversations with the community and with the kids and with people of color about that, because there's just not enough. It's not, you can't go to numbers to get the answers to that question, because the groups are so small.
Yeah, and I think
Subgroups
that's
are so small.
sorry, I found a way to be visible. We'll see how long it lasts.
It's great to see you.
Yay. Yeah, so I think what we're chewing on is exactly what our purpose is, which is to figure out, one, what do we want to know more about? Is it the piece of the ends policy that relates to equity, or is it the piece that relates to life skills, or what, there's so much in there that we could really ask people about. And then then to ask, for you, what does that look like? If we are to be an equitable school district, what does that look like? And to have that be informed by as many diverse voices as possible. Because right now, when we receive our report on these ends, it's informed mostly by data, like Nancy was saying, test scores, local assessments, statewide assessments, other things too. We've tried hard to make it more robust than just standardized test results. But what we don't know is this what a community member would say demonstrates that we are an equitable school district? And that's, I think, what my hope is that we will decide what question we want to ask people, and if it is around equity, that we're going to get informed by what it looks like by the people, our students, our teachers, our families, and have that really be how we guide the work moving forward. So there's a couple different ways to.
Lisa had her hand up.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to, this is my new personal practice, to stop myself with a wait, what? Whenever I know I'm trying to pay more attention to where my whiteness gets in the way of progress. And so I just want to say that there was something, I think it was you, Krista, that said something like, is it equity or is it life skills? Or somebody was talking about, what is the important part of the conversation. Equity is part of of all of it. Life skill, whatever's on that list, equity is at the heart of all of it. It's the foundation of all of it. So you can't even have a discussion about life skills until you've sorted out the equity piece, because being an equitable person in our society requires that basis first to even acquire any life skills that are going to make a difference in the world. So I just wanted to catch myself at that one. Thank you.
So Krista, as we're moving forward, looking at these different ends goals, equity is a big buzzword in education and community as a whole. But if we're using the research of where education is going, we're really looking through a justice lens. It's so much more than equity now. So I'm wondering if we're looking at having the conversation with the bigger community, that maybe we use some of the evidence-based research about what the difference is between equity and equality, justice, all that, so that people really understand why or what the differences are between those words and why we'd apply them to our ends policy.
Thanks, Erin. Yeah, I think what we first need to do is decide, well, and I guess I should just a process clarification. So this group makes recommendations to the board. We can't decide what we're going to do, but we can talk about and make a recommendation to the board of what we think we should do. So the first thing we need to do is to decide, is this our guiding question? Is it around what does an equitable school district look like? And then to Erin's point, I think we'd have a lot of work that we would need to do on how we want to frame that question and what that work would look like. And it's really big work. It's very, in my opinion, very important and timely, and it's happening all over. The Vermont School Board Association has been giving mini grants to school districts to embark on this work. A number of districts have hired people to help lead the work. It is very important to figure out how to do that well. And part of that, I think, maybe is what you're saying, Erin, is there's like an education component, and then there's, how to reach all of our different community members. And I also think it's not just a school board question or conversation. I know in Bristol, there's been some really great work on bringing a social justice series to our community. And I think there's even been some work or proposed work on connecting with other town officials around having a equity lens, like the select board members and town planners and that kind of thing. So anyway, it's there's a lot to unpack there, but I think the first thing we need to do is decide if we want to recommend to the board that is the guiding question for this, for our community linkage plan.
Well, at least the guiding topic. I don't think we've gotten close to yet
Yeah.
what the guiding question is, but
Right. Does this group, oh, go ahead, Margie or Margie? Margie.
Margie, speaking for myself, I think equity would be a great focus. I can't think of anything more important.
And I also think that, we could, the work that we did prior to COVID with Sue McCormick was so unifying. And I had the chance to look at some of those photos from our meeting at Mount Abe, where we had, I don't know, felt like 175 people in the large cafeteria. And I think this could be something people could reunify around at a time when it would be great to bring us together.
I do too. And I also think one of the great things about this focus is that, like you said, Krista, there's certainly, I think we all have a lot to learn about this topic. And I get kind of excited about ways we could learn together. And it's very challenging, especially given the long list of the characteristics that we're talking about. We're talking about family economics, ethnicity, race, religion, class, geography, disability, language, gender, sexual orientation, gender identity or initial proficiencies. I'm not even sure what that means. But anyway, that's a lot. It's big. And but I think it would be a great piece for all of us to
And
work
the initial proficiency is like, say you go into third grade, but you're at a first grade level.
Oh, I
that
see.
shouldn't hinder
Okay.
you. Yeah.
That makes sense. Now I remember.
So it sounds like we're all on board with recommending that this be a focus for our work, which makes my heart very happy because I'm really personally very passionate about that. And so, I don't, there's a lot in flux, but I'm committed to keep moving the conversation forward. And I don't know exactly what that's going to look like as we go forward. But as far as next steps, I have to think about what that looks like. Because I wonder if it would help our group to have some models of how this work has looked in other districts, and ways people have brought their community together to have these conversations. Like, in other words, maybe there's some learning we need to do first to figure out what it would look like to have these conversations in our community and who our partners should be in those conversations. Because like I said, I know there's some things already happening. And I think there's a lot of great community capital to, people and resources to pull in to move this work forward. So do we want to just, I don't know, do a little brainstorming on what might be next, and maybe can come back the next time we meet and talk a little bit about, I'm not sure. I'm kind of all over the place a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm just happy that we're going to have this conversation, but I'm not sure what to do now. Elisa.
I'm not sure what to do either, but I just wanted to say, Nancy, yes, it's really big, but it helps me to remember that even though there's all those different topics from gender to race to wherever, it's really just one thing. And that is, how do we teach our students just to be kind to each other? It's just an open-hearted way of relating human to human, regardless of all of the labels and the areas, right? It's like that's the baseline that we want our students to leave Mount Abe or wherever they're in, whatever school, with this sense that they're all together and they're all connected. And it's, am I making any sense? It's like there's an underlying factor. And that's the thing to go for, is this underlying feel in your heart for other people, regardless of all of those labels. So it's big, but it's also actually really very simple when you come right down to it. It's big, but it's simple. It's both at the same time.
Well, it's very simple. At the same time, we're talking about systemic discrimination along in all of those kinds of characteristics. And so figuring out, and it's great to hear the school district has been working on this at the school. I do think that this conversation is a conversation where our community will be learning along with our students about what this means and how to undo some of the things that are in this, sort of integrated into the system right now.
Yeah.
So, of course, it's simple, but I don't know. I'd love to brainstorm with the group. I think that would be fun about some things we might be. So, just what kind of steps might we take? Is that what you meant, Krista?
Yeah, I mean, whatever. I mean, we're here till 8 and I'm, we could just kind of talk a little bit more about what this could look like until then. How about we do that?
The second thing I was going to suggest was we might, if there's a way to invite the principal of the Winooski School to sit in with us. They've done an excellent job with all of their influx of students from many different cultures. So they have had great success, and we might get some guidance from them.
So I'm going to kind of start a list of people to connect with. And then also I was thinking it'd be great to have a list of partners in our community right now.
So I don't know who Ray Donovan is, but I already am hoping I'll get to know more about that. I'm very also interested in and I don't know anything about this, only that I missed the talk by Jason Reynolds that took place fairly recently, and the work that he has been doing with all over the country, I guess. But I guess one of the things I'm starting to envision is that part of this might be a presentation by someone amazing that would involve both students and grown-ups learning together as one tiny piece of what this work might do and what the kickoff might look like.
Go ahead, Liz.
I feel like, Nancy, that is what we had talked about at one point a while ago, right? Years ago, we talked about having somebody come in some of our forums looking like an expert in a field, making a presentation on a topic, which then gets us into a conversation as a community.
Yeah.
And of course, students, and maybe there's childcare. I mean, all the things that we could do to make it accessible. That would be nice. And Ray worked for us, and she now works, she does that work over for the Virgin School District now. But yeah, she's around. She's certainly around and familiar with our community.
I mean, it seems to me part of certainly what I need to learn more about is what has been going on. What is the work that the school's been doing? I'd be fascinated to learn more about that.
So I think that sometimes when people do, they bring communities together around justice, equity, and inclusion. Sometimes they start with a kind of an audit, which is almost sort of made me think of what you were saying. Made me think of that when you said that, Nancy, that kind of just assessing what's currently happening. Another way that sometimes communities start is depending on the climate at the time. Like if things have been bubbling up and they're intense, sometimes it's just asking folks, what do you like about living here? What's challenging for you about living here? And what do you think you need to make this a place that everybody feels welcome? So that's another way to do this. It'd be interesting to think about and maybe have some guidance on how to engage people in conversation that doesn't feel threatening, because I think this could easily get polarizing for people, instead of for people seeing that that we all benefit when everybody's lifted up. So yeah, just some things to think about.
I really like that a lot. I really like those questions, like that as a thought exchange, students, community. That's the best way you could put it, because it's so open-ended. And so it just feels like, I mean, and we're not telling people what their challenge is, right? And narrowing it down. They can just let us know.
I do really like, oh, go ahead, Mark.
So I just had a question, because with this topic, of course, comes how we live. Access to healthcare, for instance, is just one facet that affects how the kids do in school. And it's not what would traditionally be considered by the board an educational issue. But is this something that we would allow ourselves to get into also, like the idea of community schools, so that there might be health services offered at a school? So are we going to stick to what happens more traditionally within an educational community, or are we going to try to think outside the box a bit? That's a question I have.
Well, isn't it, I don't know, the way I've been thinking about this is, I do want this to, I hear you saying you want this to lead to action, and I do too. And that, and part of the challenge will be how to organize this exploration, or how to formulate our question, I guess, or our questions in such a way that they do lead to action, but informed action, not just, Elisa might say, not just white action, not just middle class action, not just, heterosexual action. I mean, but
Nancy, when I don't know if you remember, one of the things we did with Sue was we had a community leader conversation, and I think it was on Zoom, and out of that we got this great topic list, and broadband was one of them. And I have this notion that was the beginning of the Maple broadband stuff.
Yep.
But maybe I'm putting too much into it. But my point is, I guess, that I think that, like I said before, this is a conversation that, and like schools today in general, they're not a silo unto themselves, but it may not be that the schools can do all of the things, but that they find ways to bring people in, or to find where the resources are out to help with those things. So like we were talking about access in our communities, and broadband came up, and that's not something the school district can solve, but it's something that an informed group of people who get to connect together might be able to solve. So, so I think it's an important, there's I would imagine an openness to this. And also we have a partnership that just started with Mountain Health at Mount Abe, which I don't know if you're aware of, and it's amazing. So I don't know how it all happened. It's magic, but I know my kids can now get their sports physicals at Mount Abe through Mountain Health, which is just, and there's flu clinics and all kinds of great stuff. But so.
And the teachers can also access those services.
Oh, okay. That's great.
That is great.
that is
Yeah.
great. That is really great.
What else is brewing in people's minds as you think about this? I don't want to put you on the spot, Erin, but feel free to chime in at any time.
I will as I have a thought come up.
Okay, thank you.
Alyssa's hand is up.
Oh, okay, go ahead. I was just looking for something, so if I don't, just go ahead and jump in.
Oh, it's okay. So we were playing around with words, equity and justice and a few other words. I guess those are the buzzwords that people understand right now, but I don't know. For me, they no longer quite fit the bill. I feel like what we could try to do is imagine a whole new culture at the school. How does a basically mostly white community set about creating a culture in which everyone at our schools is completely at ease, completely happy with their environment, completely safe, and completely with access to all of what the school can offer. It's a culture building, and it's not something we can do just by thinking about it. There's got to be an experiential component in there somehow. And it's building a new culture to replace a very deeply embedded culture that's already there from years and years and years of this is how schools work. So this is how we're going to do it. So how do we, I think I'm a little bit with Margie on that. How do we let ourselves be outside of the box enough to create a whole new culture at the school that's beyond diversion, equity, and inclusion? It's beyond that. It's a whole new culture, and create, and with that kind of a culture, make people want to come to our schools. I have to say right now, if I had kids right now, I would not send them to Mount Aim. I wouldn't do it. Knowing what I know and hearing what I've heard and seen what I've seen, I wouldn't do it. But there were a culture there that was so accepting and so open. I would. And that's my dream. Is I'm a graduate of Mount Aim. My children graduated from Mount Aim, and I feel like I owe it to my community to do my best to help create that culture. So to me, culture is the word. That probably needs more fleshing out. But
I mean, I want to drop a little spark of hope there as well. I graduated from Mount Aim. My mother did as well, right? Like we've been around here, and my son is a junior there right now. We're very open about ourselves. He is nonverbal. He has a diverse background. He has medical needs, and he's gone through Bristol Elementary and Mount Aim, accepted, included. He has friends. He does track. I know this is in no way, to diminish that there are very real challenges. I hear you, and I know those are real, but I also don't want it to seem like, I wouldn't move because I believe he needs the connections and the community that he has there so deeply that's the reason that I wouldn't leave. Once he was a couple years into school, those connections were just irreplaceable, right? So I don't want to minimize that there's improvement to be made, but I also hope that that's not a general feeling throughout our community, that it's not a safe place, because he probably won't like hearing that. I frankly, as a parent, I consider him a very vulnerable person in a lot of ways, right? Like, because he is very kind and he is very go with the flow and all of that. But I have people all around town. I can go to the CUNY stand, I can go to Covers, I can go to Walgreens, and the girl will be like, "Oh, you're Mike's mom. He's in my class. He makes my day every day. I love seeing him there." And so I just wouldn't lose hope, in who we are and what we can be.
Yeah, I think it's important to recognize that both of those things can be true. And I think that one of the ways to create that and continue to build on that culture, at least as a board member, I've learned that that for me, the way that I'm interested in making changes at the systems level and looking at, the way we structure what we do so that it keeps that, so that it lets that culture thrive. And that's my lens. And a student's lens might be really different. It might be the way they're welcomed into a class, or it might be not being harassed for being Black, or it might be so many different things. So I think that for us, it's really important we're going to need partners in this work so that we can try to hear from lots of different people about their experiences, so that it's we know what a welcoming space looks like to everybody. I was just looking because I was reminded that the School Board Association in Vermont had these mini grants, and there's one that I think this opportunity expires in December, but I'm going to just mention it now. And I thought I copied the text. So I'm going to copy this text and throw it in the chat and just ask you to take a quick look. I wonder if there's a way for us to take advantage of this. It's a equity consulting services for school boards. So this would be specifically for the school board, but it says it's to assist school board members and principals and superintendents with ongoing conversations in their communities related to equity and associated topics. They're using this consulting group to develop resources such as talking points, community engagement best practices, communication strategies, as well as providing real-time thought partnerships with superintendents, administrators, and school board chairs to address challenging situations. To streamline requests for support, school board members would submit a request, and then they would see if if the requests were approved. I'm not able to stick in the chat the actual text of that, but I just wonder if it would be interesting to see if we might be able to utilize a resource that is being offered for free and just take something from it in terms of how to think about next steps. What do people think about that idea?
Sure.
It sounds like a really nice idea. Is it a particular agency or particular group? And might it be a good idea to ask some people who have already received the services how satisfied they were with them, whether it worked for their schools or not, what they thought of it?
Yeah, it's an organization called Insight Education Group, and I think that's a great point. I wonder if there is a way to ask the Vermont School Board Association. So I did put the link to their organization in the chat, figured out how to do that. But I wonder if I reached out to the Vermont School Board Association and asked them if there's any feedback we could get on other people that have worked with them. I feel like they might have done some stuff that was, I think that there was just the annual school board association meeting in October, and I did not attend, but I think that there may have been some districts that have utilized this group that shared what they did with these mini grants. And so it might be possible for me to reach out to them. But I will see what information I can get. And this group wouldn't be meeting again. We normally meet on the first Tuesday of the month, and we weren't able to do that this month. But if it looks like we would need to submit a request before that time, I might communicate by email with this group. And I'll have to run it by the board as well to see if everybody is good with us reaching out and seeing just learning more about what services we could get. I want to be clear that it seems like a good resource that's out there, but I don't think it's going to solve everything and fix everything and be everything. So I don't want people to think, oh, wait, here's the solution and here it is and we're going to be good to go. But it just keeps popping up in my inbox that they're offering this. And I keep thinking, oh, we should take some advantage. So that's the spirit in which I'm interested in looking at that.
It might
It
be a
also
very
makes
good
me-
beginning too.
What's that?
We have to begin somewhere, so it might be a nice beginning.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's also okay to, or it might be a good idea for us all to think about possible resources
Mhm.
that we might want to check on before we meet next.
Mhm.
I have a friend who's a wonderful teacher who's very interested in equity work. She isn't teaching in this district right now, but she's teaching nearby, and I think she knows a lot. I think she's learned a lot about this, and she's a person I would want to talk to about, if you were starting a community school conversation about equity, what and just sort of pick her brain. And also, I don't know, I just think we probably all have some contacts that might help us think broadly about ways to approach this, and but between now and our next meeting, we might explore that a bit. Without making promises or without saying this is what our school district is going to do, just kind of hypothetically.
Yep. And Sue is, I've had the chance to work on some projects
Sue.
with Sue McCormick beyond the school board, and I talk with her fairly regularly, and so she might also have.
Yeah.
I'd be happy to just say, hey, if we were to launch this, what do you think?
Yeah, because she probably has she's probably got a very broad network, not only of, based on her own experience, but of other groups that have tried, that have explored this topic in ways that have worked.
There was something else I was going to say. Oh, I was going to say that if anyone has wants to invite other people to join us to our next meeting, please do. Like I said, this is work that we're all going to need to take part in. And I think it's work that would energize people to get involved. So, yeah.
And so, Krista, are you and the other board members who are here, are you thinking that a next step is for you to go back to the board and ask them to tell them that this seems to be a focus that is of great interest to this group, and see if they would endorse our pursuing that?
Yes. Yeah. And we are meeting. I'm just looking at my calendar in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
I think we're actually meeting the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. So, and I can share with folks that we're interested in looking into the VSBA, the Vermont School Board Association grant, and we're interested in maybe reaching out to a couple of other people for some information before our next meeting. So, yeah, that would be the next step from the board perspective. And my sense is that they'll say, carry on. I don't know what you think, Liz or
Right.
Aaron.
Is there any money that might be available to us to pursue this project?
I don't know.
Or that there might be grants we could apply for? To
Yes.
pursue it?
I mean, that's, I think, the first
Or
thing to
like-
find out.
Yeah.
Or I
We
guess the
also-
first thing would be to figure out what it is we would even need resources for. But we do have a budget for the school board. I think if we had a proposal, we could figure out how to fund it.
Okay.
We might also be able to get a community sponsor.
Mhm.
And we have Aaron here, who I consider an expert in this area. And so I really look forward to hearing more of your ideas about how to move forward as well.
Well, I appreciate that sentiment, Liz. Yeah, and I look forward to hearing because this is my first meeting and this is a big topic.
Yeah.
I feel like every one of my first meetings is like heavy and big, but that's okay. But it's important to understand what's important, and the whole idea of building culture and figuring out what language to use and demonstrating to people how we would like that to look is really important. But we also have to balance that with measurable goals for when kiddos graduate out of our school system. So there has to be either a completely radical shift from how education is done to create a new type of community and learning environment, or we need to figure out how to bend the current one to fit a model that would feel better in sort of in different steps, if you will. So yeah, I look forward to hearing more and learning more about what we're talking about so that I can be more helpful.
Aaron, can you tell folks your background and
Yeah, so I am from the mental health world. I study regulation and trauma in kiddos, and I currently work with adults who have been in different institutional settings from the time they were little to now. And I work, so adults ranging from age 18, and my oldest individual is 74. And I work really closely with different regulation centers in Ontario, Canada, and California, and Texas, New York City. I work with different OTs in Connecticut and New York to help figure out a holistic way of looking at behavior and how to treat it. So my PhD work, my dissertation work, is creating a regulation tool. It's a reflective practice tool for preschool teachers to help identify the underlying meaning or the underlying use for a behavior so that they can be a better, the preschool teacher can help regulate a child more easily. So my whole life I've just spent watching people and becoming really familiar with what the body is telling me. So yeah, that's my background.
thank you?
And I feel like the connection for me there is just that I would say the hardest thing to create inclusion around in our community as evidence from what I've seen, has been behavioral differences. I mean, that just seems to be the thing that comes up. It's not even hidden at all and widely recognized. Somebody, how do we include students that have different needs in those areas and keeping them in the classroom and accessing their education so they can be successful too? I really appreciate what you do.
Thanks. Yeah, and that's a huge question too, right? Because when we're asking to create this sort of one size fits all model, that's an extremely big lift. And the education system is a perfect example of why that doesn't work. Right? Because you can't have kiddos with neurodivergent thinking or neurodivergent behavior or atypical behavioral patterns fit into the classic system, and add on top of that racial differences or whatever it is, and you've got a whole different game. So when we're talking about this work, it'll be really important for me to be really open-minded about why or how to use the idea of behavior to benefit us, because all behavior is changeable, but how you change it can make a big difference. So I'm trying to listen and gain information now so that I can have a better path in my own head about what sort of things I need to think about.
One of the things that that this has made me think about was partly of Elisa talking about changing the culture and describing a culture where everyone feels safe, at ease, confident. I can't remember all the words you used, Elisa, but what popped into my mind when you said that was, yeah, but this is adolescence. I mean, oh my God. And then when Erin was talking, I had sort of the same thinking about add on top of all of that adolescence and all that at least in dominant culture in our country, what that all means and what it this may seem like just a crazy ideas, but what I hearkened back to was two ideas I was toying with when I worked for the school district that never went anywhere because I just couldn't figure out how to do it. But one of them was about what if there were a school where in order to go to it, you got dropped with a group of your classmates or people who were about to be in your class on the other side of Lake Champlain in the Adirondacks someplace, and you had to figure out how to get to school. And it probably would involve some hiking, some climbing, some being in a boat, anyway, kind of an outward bound experience-ish that led you to the school, and that in order to succeed at, in order to make it, people really need to help each other. So that popped into my head. And the other thing that I, for a long time, not a long time, but a long time ago, I was, I can't remember the details of this, but I was reading about and learning about the idea that in our culture, we don't really have coming of age rituals that are formalized the way they do in some other cultures, and that instead our adolescents often replace that kind of coming of age ritual with some pretty risky behavior that gets them in a lot of trouble in a lot of ways. And there was a group, and I can't remember where it was, whether it was, I think it may have been in our region, where they were taking groups of kids and having them learn about, having them prepare for a coming of age ritual. Lisa, you know more about this than I'm remembering, I
I
suppose.
was part of that organization. It was amazing, amazing.
And it just seemed, those things popped into my head as ways of taking diverse groups of kids and helping them build a new culture together that served them well. So anyway, those are just some ideas.
I think that's awesome. I have to say that those initiation ceremonies turned out a group of about 30 of the most fine, exemplary human beings I've ever known.
So because you were in the middle of that, maybe another time you can give us more detail about what that was like and how you
Sure.
organized that and what the
Yeah.
process was like.
It's absolutely, it's incredible. It's just amazing. Took about a year for each group. Really, really incredible.
Is that something that I've heard a little bit about this? I wasn't here at the time, but I have friends who were, I forget what it was called, like the godfathers or godmothers.
I was a godmother. Yeah.
Is that the sort of thing that you folks who went through that might be able to replicate, or would you really need the leader that you had who was coming in regularly to lead this? Or is it some skills that people have learned now that could be passed on?
I think there could be extracted from the process a certain amount of skills that could be translated into a slightly different situation. Yeah, I know who to talk to about it. So yeah, I can work on that.
It's 7:44. Anything else folks have brewing in their minds that they want to get out onto the Zoomiverse?
Zoomiverse. I have one thing,
Mhm.
and it's just something for us to use a little bit of caution with, and that is what I've learned over the last 2 or 3 years is that it really doesn't work for primarily white-bodied group to seek the advice of people of color to ask them what they think we should do. So I'd like to just put that on the table. We got to figure this out by ourselves, folks. It's, it would be insulting to people of color to ask them to tell us what they think they need. So I think we just got to figure it out by ourselves. It's not that you can't study yourself personally with a person of color. I've done quite a lot of that, but I would never ask them to try to solve my white problems. So there. And I guess I could also, Erin, you sound like an amazing person, and I appreciate all that you bring to the group. I don't know if you're familiar with Resmaa Menakem, but if you wanted to read something that's in the line of building culture, it would be something I would recommend. His name is Resmaa, Resmaa, Menikem, Menikem. And he's written several books on somatic abolitionism.
Yeah.
And he's to the point and cuts to the chase, but I learned so much from this person. And he is a therapist. So
Yeah, I think that's extremely important if we're talking about modifying really deep-seated cultural, I mean, I'm going to call them biases, but they're implicit, right? They're not built in a day.
you can
And
take through his website, you can take a 2-day educational workshop on somatic abolitionism. And he also wrote a book called My Grandmother's Hands, which
yeah, I've heard about that book.
it's a book, and then there's a workbook and to work through, and it's just really amazing. He's an amazing man, so just thought I'd throw that out.
Can you put his name in the chat by any
Yes.
chance? It's hard to catch it when you.
Absolutely.
It'll end in 15.
There you go.
Thank you.
Since we're sharing resources, I'm going to share some work by Tima Okun, and she put together a dominant culture mindset, white supremacy culture mindset, a list of characteristics and some antidotes to that. And sorry, I'm trying to find the link. Anyway, it's really great as I've read through this, just to recognize where my own biases kind of lead me to, especially doing work like this. Like, for example, the sense of urgency, or the sense that qualified means you have a formal degree, or that the written word is the expert. So anyway, I'll just share that resource as well. Found it to be really helpful on how I'm trying to, like, for instance, tonight, to not get so uptight about the agenda and what time it is, and to just like let conversation flow a little more. Anyway, this is all great, and I hope we'll keep continuing to share resources with one another. I want to just recap what I think our next steps are. I'm going to reach out to the Vermont School Board Association to find a little bit more info and feedback on that equity consultant and what opportunities might be there. And then plan to share at the school board meeting on the 22nd. And Liz and Aaron, I'll look to you guys to chime in as well, that that this is going to be the focus of our work, and that we're really at the beginning stages of thinking about what that might look like. And in the meantime, if you all could think about people to invite to our next meeting, or other resources that might exist that we should consider, that would be really helpful. And you should all be on my email list, but that meeting will be December 6th at 8. Or sorry, at 6 to 8. And we've just been meeting by Zoom since COVID, and I think for planning purposes that works really well for people. But when we actually are connecting with community members, we'll hopefully be doing that in person. Anything else folks want to share before we sign off?
I just share my gratitude. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for being here. I'm going to give you back about 9 minutes of time. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. We'll talk soon.